The message came from nowhere, crackling through the vast communication networks that connected thousands of worlds across the galaxy. It was weak, primitive, transmitted on radio waves that most civilized species had abandoned centuries ago. The signal originated from a small yellow star in an unremarkable corner of space, from the third planet in a system the galactic charts labeled simply as Sol 3. Ambassador Zexthul stood before the massive viewing screen in the Confederation Council chamber, his 6 eyes studying the translated text that scrolled past in flowing script. Around him, representatives from dozens of species murmured among themselves, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and telepathic static. To the Galactic Confederation, the message began in what the translation computers had identified as the dominant language of the sender species. We are the people of Earth, representing the unified governments of humanity. We have recently achieved interstellar communication capabilities and wish to establish peaceful, diplomatic relations with your organization. We come in friendship, seeking knowledge and offering the same in return. A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. Several of the smaller species chittered openly, while the massive hegemon delegates simply rumbled with what passed for laughter among their kind. Zexthul himself felt his mandibles twitch in what his species considered a smile. Peaceful diplomatic relations, repeated Counselor Vrakath, her crystalline form chiming with each word. How quaint! Another primitive species believes they can simply ask to join the Confederation. Zexthul gestured for silence with one of his 4 arms. The message continued, and he wanted to hear all of it. The humans, as they called themselves, went on to describe their world, their recently unified government, and their desire to contribute to what they termed the greater galactic community. They offered gifts of mathematical knowledge, artistic works, and scientific discoveries. They even included coordinates for their home world and invited a diplomatic mission to visit them. Mathematical knowledge, scoffed Admiral Kesrak, his scales shifting to display patterns of contempt. From a species that has not even achieved faster-than-light travel, what could they possibly know that we do not? The analysis reports appeared on Zexthul's personal display. Sol 3, the planet these humans called Earth, was a single world harboring approximately 8 billion individuals of their species. They had achieved atomic energy and basic spaceflight, putting them at classification level 7th on the Confederation development scale. Most level 7 species were either ignored entirely or absorbed as labor sources after minimal resistance. Their energy output suggests they have discovered nuclear fusion, reported the chief science advisor, a floating jellyfish-like being, whose translator rendered its bioelectric speech into standard Confederation. However, their largest vessels appear to be barely capable of reaching their own planetary satellites. No evidence of energy shields, plasma weapons, or quantum manipulation. More laughter echoed through the chamber. Zexthul examined the tactical assessment. No orbital defenses. No evidence of military space capability beyond crude chemical rockets. Their most powerful weapons were primitive nuclear devices that could barely crack the armor of a Confederation shuttle. They request an exchange of ambassadors, Zexthul announced, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's acoustics. They offer to receive our delegation with what they call full diplomatic honors and hope to establish trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. The last phrase sent several species into renewed fits of amusement. Mutual defense pacts with a single world species that could not even protect their own orbital space. High Counselor Yethnan, the ancient leader of the Confederation, raised one of her many tentacles for attention. Her species had been among the first to achieve interstellar travel, and her personal age was measured in millennia. When she spoke, the entire chamber fell silent. This request amuses the Council, she said, her words carrying the weight of absolute authority. However, the Confederation has always maintained that even the most primitive species deserve consideration. We shall send a diplomatic mission to this Earth. She paused, and Zex Thul could see the calculation in her ancient eyes. Of course, we must also assess their potential value to the Confederation. Their population numbers suggest they could provide adequate labor for our mining operations in the outer systems. Their home world may contain resources worthy of exploitation. The decision was unanimous, as Zex Thul had expected. The Confederation would dispatch a diplomatic vessel to Sol 3, but not for the reasons the humans hoped. They would assess the species for potential integration as a client state, or, more likely, as a protectorate whose resources and population could be efficiently managed. Ambassador Zex Thul, High Counselor Yethnon continued, you will lead this mission. Take the Ascendant Glory and a suitable diplomatic party. Inform these humans of the Confederation's generous offer of protection and guidance. If they prove cooperative, we may allow them to retain some level of self-governance. If not, she did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the chamber understood the fate of species that refused Confederation generosity. As the council session ended and the various species began filing out of the chamber, Zex Thul reviewed the mission parameters on his personal communicator. The Ascendant Glory was a mid-sized vessel, well-armed but designed for diplomatic functions. Its crew of 300 included representatives from a dozen different Confederation species, each selected for their expertise in dealing with primitive civilizations. The ship's captain, a veteran named Korthan from the militaristic Kralex species, appeared on his display screen. Ambassador, we can depart within 6 standard cycles. The journey to Sol 3 will take approximately 20 days at standard cruise speed. Excellent, Zex Thul replied. Ensure our gift storage bays are properly stocked. We will want to impress these humans with demonstrations of our technological superiority. He closed the communication and turned back to the viewing screen, which now displayed a tactical map of the Sol system, such a small, insignificant star, harboring a species that believed it could simply request membership in an organization that controlled thousands of worlds and countless trillions of beings. The humans' message had included samples of their art and music, which the Cultural Analysis Department had reviewed. Primitive but showing some creativity, the report concluded. Their mathematics were elementary by Confederation standards, though they had managed to discover some basic principles of physics and chemistry. Their literature spoke of concepts like honor, freedom, and self-determination, concepts that would need to be properly managed once they became a Confederation protectorate. Zex Thul made his way through the corridors of the council station toward his private quarters. Tomorrow he would begin preparations for what would likely be a very brief diplomatic mission. The humans would be given the standard choice: accept Confederation protection and guidance, or face the consequences of their refusal. In his centuries of diplomatic service, he had never encountered a level 7 species foolish enough to choose the latter option. The message from Earth continued to repeat on a loop, broadcasting their naive hope for peaceful contact into the void. Zex Thul almost felt sorry for them. They seemed genuinely enthusiastic about the possibility of joining what they called the galactic community. They had no idea that the galactic community was not a democracy of equals, but a carefully managed hierarchy where each species knew its place. Soon enough, these humans would learn their place as well. The Ascendant Glory dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, its sensors immediately beginning their sweep of the primitive star system. Ambassador Zex Thul stood on the bridge, watching as the tactical displays, populated with information about the 9 planets orbiting the small yellow star. Scans confirm the intelligence reports, announced Science Officer Technal, her insectoid form hunched over her console. The 3rd planet shows extensive signs of industrial civilization. Population density appears concentrated in large urban centers. No orbital installations detected beyond primitive communication satellites and a small space station. Captain Korthan examined the tactical readouts with professional interest. Their largest spacecraft appear to be chemical fuel vessels barely capable of reaching their moon. No energy weapons detected, no shield generators. Their most advanced military installations appear to be ground-based missile sites equipped with nuclear warheads. Zexthul nodded approvingly. Everything was exactly as the preliminary reports had indicated. These humans possessed technology that the Confederation had abandoned thousands of years ago. It would be like negotiating with Stone Age primitives. Open. A communication channel, he ordered. Let us announce our arrival. The response came within minutes, transmitted on the same primitive radio frequencies the humans had used for their original message. The voice spoke in their dominant language, which the ship's translators rendered into perfect Confederation. Standard. Unknown vessel. This is Earth Traffic Control. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. This is Ambassador Zexthul of the Galactic Confederation, responding to your invitation for diplomatic contact. We request permission to establish orbit around your world for formal negotiations. The silence stretched for several minutes. Zexthul could imagine the panic and excitement such a message would cause among the humans. First contact with an alien civilization would be the most significant event in their species' history. When the response came, it was in a different voice, older and more formal. Ambassador Zexthul, this is Secretary General Chen Wei of the United Earth Government. On behalf of all humanity, I welcome you to our solar system. We have prepared a reception for your delegation and invite you to meet with our representatives. We are transmitting coordinates for a suitable orbital position. Graciously accepted, Zexthul replied, though his tone carried subtle condescension that he doubted the primitives would detect. 3 hours later, a small human shuttle approached the Ascendant Glory. The vessel was laughably crude, using chemical, rockets for propulsion, and metal plating for protection. Zexthul watched from the observation deck as it docked with their ship, marveling at how the humans had managed to achieve even this level of technology. The airlock opened, and the human delegation entered. Zexthul had seen images of the species in the preliminary files, but seeing them in person was still amusing. They were bipedal mammals, covered in primitive clothing that served both protective and decorative functions. Their leader, Secretary General Chen Wei, was a small female with graying hair and intelligent eyes. Ambassador Zexthul, she said, bowing slightly in what was apparently a human gesture of respect. Thank you for accepting our invitation. This is truly a historic moment for our species. Indeed, Zexthul replied, towering over the human delegation with his 2-meter height and 4 arms. The Confederation is always pleased to make contact with developing civilizations. The word developing was carefully chosen. In Confederation terminology, it was one step above primitive and several steps below civilized. The humans had brought gifts, as their original message had promised. They presented mathematical proofs, samples of their art and literature, recordings of their music, and examples of their scientific achievements. Secretary General Chen spoke passionately about human culture, their diversity of languages and customs, their history of overcoming conflicts to achieve unity. We have recently established a unified planetary government, she explained, gesturing to holographic displays the humans had somehow managed to create despite their technological limitations. For the first time in our history, all nations of Earth speak with one voice. We believe this positions us to be productive members of the galactic community. The alien delegation exchanged glances that the humans likely could not interpret. Cultural Officer Vexith, whose species communicated primarily through color changes in their skin, was practically glowing with amusement. The humans thought their planetary unification was an achievement worthy of note, when most Confederation species had unified their homeworlds before achieving interstellar travel. Your accomplishments are remarkable, Zexthul said, accepting a small sculpture that apparently represented some aspect of human artistic expression. However, I should explain how the Confederation typically handles integration of new species. He activated his personal holographic projector, showing images of Confederation space. Thousands of star systems appeared in the display, connected by trade routes and communication networks. The Confederation encompasses over 10,000 inhabited worlds, he began, noting how the human's eyes widened at the scope of galactic civilization. We maintain order and prosperity through a carefully structured system. Each member species contributes according to their abilities and receives protection and guidance according to their needs. Secretary General Chen leaned forward, clearly interested. We're very eager to contribute to such an organization. Earth may be a single world, but we have 8 billion people and extensive industrial capabilities. We've developed some unique technologies that might be of interest to the broader galactic community. Several members of the alien delegation made sounds that their translators rendered as polite coughs, but which were actually poorly suppressed laughter. Your enthusiasm is charming, Zexthul continued. However, given your current technological development level, the Confederation has determined that Earth would best serve as a protectorate world. He expanded the holographic display to show the Confederation's administrative structure. Protectorate. Worlds are placed under direct Confederation management for their own protection. Your population would be relocated to designated residential areas optimized for efficiency and safety. Your industrial capabilities would be integrated into the broader Confederation economy. Your military forces would be disbanded, as protection would be provided by Confederation security forces. The humans exchanged glances that even the aliens could interpret as troubled. I'm not sure I understand, Secretary General Chen said carefully. Are you saying that humanity would not be allowed to govern itself? Self-governance is a privilege earned through demonstrated capability, Zexthul explained patiently. Your species lacks the technological sophistication and cultural development necessary for full membership in the Confederation. Protectorate status would allow you to contribute to galactic civilization while ensuring your world's resources are properly managed. And if we decline this offer? Asked another human delegate, a military officer whose posture had noticeably stiffened. The question surprised Zexthul. In all his centuries of diplomatic service, no primitive species had ever asked that question. The answer was so obvious that it seemed unnecessary to state it. Decline? He repeated. I'm afraid I don't. Understand. The Confederation's protection is not optional for worlds within our sphere of influence. Your system falls clearly within Confederation space. Secretary General Chen stood slowly, her small frame somehow managing to project dignity, despite being surrounded by beings who could easily overpower her. Ambassador Zexthul, she said, her voice carrying a firmness that seemed incongruous with her species' primitive technology. I'm afraid that proposal is unacceptable. We respectfully decline your offer of protectorate status. Humanity will remain a free and independent species. The silence that followed her words was absolute. Every alien in the room stared at the small human female who had just done something that no one in the Confederation had seen before. A primitive species had refused their generous offer of protection and management. Zexthul's mandibles twitched, in what might have been amusement or disbelief. I believe there has been a misunderstanding. Perhaps your translation systems are malfunctioning. The Confederation's offer is not a negotiation. It is an inevitability. Our translation systems are working perfectly, Secretary General Chen replied. And our answer remains the same. We appreciate your visit, but humanity chooses to remain independent. We hope you will respect our decision. For the first time in his diplomatic career, Ambassador Zexthul found himself genuinely speechless. Ambassador Zexthul stared at the small human female for several long moments, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as his mind processed what he had just heard. Around him, the other members of the Confederation delegation seemed equally stunned by the unprecedented response. Secretary General Chen, he said finally, his voice carrying the patience one might use with a confused child. I believe you may not fully comprehend the situation. The Confederation's authority extends across thousands of star systems. No single world has the capability to exist independently within our sphere of influence. We understand the scope of your organization, Chen replied calmly. However, we also understand the principle of self-determination. Humanity will not surrender its freedom simply because we are outnumbered. Cultural Officer Vexith's skin shifted through several colors that the translation system identified as expressions of bewilderment and amusement. Military Attaché Krexvol, a heavily armored creature from one of the Confederation's warrior species, leaned forward with what passed for a smile among his kind. Perhaps, Zexthul said, his tone becoming more formal, a demonstration would help clarify the realities of your situation. He gestured to Captain Korthan, who nodded and activated his communication device. Captain to Bridge, prepare a demonstration of our defensive capabilities. Target the uninhabited landmass designated as coordinates 77 Alpha. Through the observation windows of the diplomatic chamber, the humans could see the Ascendant Glory's main weapons systems coming online. Energy coursed through crystalline focusing arrays that glowed with barely contained power. The ship's plasma. Cannons rotated toward Earth, their targeting systems locking onto a small uninhabited island in the planet's largest ocean. The island you are about to observe has no human population, Zexthul explained conversationally. Consider this an educational demonstration of the technology gap between our civilizations. The plasma beam that lanced down from the ship lasted only 3 seconds. When it ended, the island was gone, replaced by a perfectly circular area of glass that reflected the sunlight like a mirror. The energy release had been so intense that it had fused the ocean floor into a crystalline sheet, extending several meters below the surface. The human delegates watched in complete silence. Several of them were recording the demonstration with primitive electronic devices, while others simply stared at the display of raw power that had just erased a piece of their world. That island was approximately 2 kilometers in diameter, Zexthul noted helpfully. Our ship carries 12 such weapons, along with missile systems, particle beam arrays, and defensive shields that could deflect your most powerful nuclear weapons with minimal energy expenditure. He paused, allowing the implications to sink in before continuing. The Confederation battle fleet contains over 50,000 ships of various classes, many of them significantly more powerful than the Ascendant Glory. I trust this helps put your situation in proper perspective. Secretary General Chen turned away from the observation window, her face pale but her expression unchanged. A very impressive display of technology, Ambassador. However, it does not change our position. Humanity will not submit to foreign rule, regardless of the technological disparity. The other humans nodded in agreement, their primitive recording devices still documenting the conversation. Zexthul found their unity touching in its futility. I see, he said, his tone becoming colder. In that case, I am authorized to inform you that you have 72 standard hours to reconsider your position. During this time, you may use your communication systems to consult with your world's leadership and reach a more reasonable conclusion. And, if our answer remains the same, asked the military officer who had spoken earlier, then the Confederation will be forced to take more direct action to ensure galactic security, Zexthul replied. I would prefer not to detail what such action might entail. The human delegation was escorted back to their shuttle without further ceremony. As their crewed vessel departed for Earth's surface, Zexthul made his way to the bridge to observe their homeworld's response to the demonstration. Interesting species, commented Captain Korthan, watching the tactical displays that monitored Earth's communications networks. Most primitives would have surrendered immediately after witnessing our firepower. Indeed, Zexthul agreed. However, their bravery will not protect them from the consequences of their foolishness. Have you detected any signs of military mobilization? Some unusual activity, Science Officer Theknal reported. Increased communications traffic, industrial facilities operating at maximum capacity, and movement of what appear to be civilian vessels. However, nothing that suggests meaningful military preparation. The alien officers spent the next 3 days monitoring Earth's response to their ultimatum. The humans' communication networks buzzed with activity, and their news broadcasts covered the alien contact extensively. Most interesting to the Confederation observers was the apparent unity of the human response. Despite representing hundreds of different political entities, they seemed universally committed to their leadership's decision to refuse protectorate status. Their primitive nationalism appears to extend to their entire species, observed Cultural Officer Vexith. Fascinating, though ultimately irrelevant. On the third day, Zexthul received a message from Confederation High Command. Admiral Kriksta would arrive within 6 hours with a battle squadron to resolve the situation. The Admiral was a veteran of dozens of planetary pacification campaigns and had never failed to bring a resistant world into compliance. As the deadline approached, Earth transmitted a final response. Secretary General Chen's voice came through the communication systems with the same calm determination she had shown during their first meeting. Ambassador Zexthul, humanity's answer remains unchanged. We will not accept protectorate status. We understand the consequences of our decision and are prepared to face them. However, we wish to remind you that peaceful withdrawal from our system remains possible. We bear you no ill will and would still welcome honest diplomatic relations, based on mutual respect. Zexthul found the message almost admirable in its naivety. These humans genuinely believed they could negotiate with the Confederation as equals. They seemed incapable of understanding that their technological inferiority made them subjects rather than potential partners. "Attention, Earth," he broadcast in response. "Your time has expired. Confederation military forces are en route to your system. I strongly advise you to reconsider your position before their arrival. Admiral Kriksta is far less patient than a diplomatic mission." The human response came not from their government, but from what appeared to be their military command. The voice was crisp, professional, and completely unimpressed by the threat. "Ambassador Zexthul, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We acknowledge your warning. However, our position remains unchanged. Any hostile action against Earth will be met with appropriate defensive measures." "Earth Defense Force?" Captain Korthan laughed, his scales shifting to display amusement patterns. "What defense could they possibly mount? Their most advanced vessels can barely reach their own moon." Zexthul was beginning to find the humans' persistence more annoying than amusing. "Admiral Chen, I must inform you that resistance will only result in unnecessary casualties. The Confederation has protocols for dealing with non-compliant civilizations." "We understand your protocols, Ambassador," came the reply. "And we have protocols of our own. You have been warned that departure is still possible. I suggest you take advantage of this opportunity." The transmission ended, leaving the Bridge of the Ascendant Glory in bemused silence. The humans had just threatened them. A primitive single-world species had actually threatened a Confederation diplomatic mission. "Should we inform Admiral Kriksta of their attitude?" asked Captain Korthan. "I think the Admiral will discover it for himself soon enough," Zexthul replied. "In the meantime, maintain standard observation protocols. I want to document everything that happens when the squadron arrives. This will make an interesting case study in primitive psychology." As he spoke, long-range sensors detected the approaching Confederation battle squadron dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. 12 ships, including Admiral Kriksta's flagship, the Inevitable Conquest. More than enough. Firepower to reduce Earth's surface to molten slag if necessary. The humans were about to learn why resistance to the Confederation was not just futile, but literally unthinkable. The Confederation battle squadron emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 12 warships arranged in a combat spread that had been perfected over thousands of military campaigns. At the center of the formation flew the Inevitable Conquest, Admiral Kriksta's flagship, its hull scarred from dozens of planetary pacification operations. Admiral Kriksta stood on his command bridge, surveying the primitive star system through the main viewing screen. His species, the Kralex, had evolved from pack hunters, and his predatory instincts made him particularly effective at suppressing rebellious worlds. His massive frame, covered in chitinous armor plating, moved with surprising grace as he studied. The tactical displays. "Report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never failed to complete a mission. "System scan complete, Admiral," responded his tactical officer. "Single inhabited world, third planet from the star. Population approximately 8 billion. No orbital defenses detected. No fleet formations in system beyond the diplomatic vessel. Ascendant glory. What about their military capabilities? Primitive nuclear weapons, chemical fuel rockets, and basic industrial infrastructure. Their most advanced combat vehicles appear to be atmospheric aircraft using jet propulsion. No energy weapons, no shield technology, no faster-than-light. Capability. Admiral Krixta's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Another routine operation. His squadron could reduce this world to rubble in a matter of hours if necessary, though he preferred to achieve compliance through overwhelming displays of force rather than actual destruction. Dead populations produced no resources and served no useful purpose. "Open a channel to the diplomatic ship," he ordered. Ambassador Zexthul's image appeared on the communication screen, his 4 arms gesturing in greeting. "Admiral Krixta, welcome to the Sol system. I trust your journey was uneventful." "Report on the situation, Ambassador." "The humans have refused protectorate status and shown remarkable resistance to reasonable negotiation. They claim they will defend themselves against Confederation authority." Admiral Krixta's laugh was a sound like grinding metal. "Defend themselves? With what? Our scans show no meaningful military capability." "Indeed. Their defiance appears to be based on some primitive concept of honor rather than rational assessment of their situation." "Understood. I will resolve this matter quickly. Has there been any change in their military posture since our arrival?" Zexthul consulted his displays. "Some unusual communications activity and movement of civilian vessels. However, nothing that suggests meaningful military preparation. They appear to be evacuating some population centers, which shows they understand the seriousness of their situation even if they refuse to surrender." Admiral Krixta nodded and closed the communication. He turned to his weapons officer, a veteran of dozens of similar campaigns. "Prepare a demonstration strike. Target their largest military installation. Keep it small. We want to encourage surrender, not genocide." The squadron moved into attack formation, approaching Earth with the deliberate precision of an organization that had conquered thousands of worlds. Their energy signatures blazed across every sensor on the planet below, announcing their presence to anyone with even primitive detection equipment. "Scanning Earth's communication networks," reported the intelligence officer. "Massive surge in their information systems. They're broadcasting news of our arrival across their entire planet." "Let them watch," Admiral Krixta said. "Fear can be as effective as force in encouraging compliance." He activated the general communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies that the humans used for their primitive radio networks. "People of Earth, this is Admiral Krixta of the Confederation Navy. Your government has refused the generous offer of protectorate status. You now have one final opportunity to surrender before we demonstrate the futility of resistance." The Bai response came not from the planet's surface, but from somewhere much closer. A transmission so powerful it actually caused feedback in the squadron's communication arrays. Every ship in the formation received the signal simultaneously, broadcast, with impossible precision across multiple frequencies. "Confederation forces, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. You are trespassing in sovereign human space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Admiral Krixta stared at his communication officer in disbelief. "Source of that transmission?" "Unknown, sir. The signal appears to be coming from everywhere. Multiple transmission points throughout the system." "That's impossible. Our scans show no significant installations beyond the planet itself. The tactical officer looked up from his displays, confusion evident even through his alien features. Admiral, we're detecting some kind of anomaly. There are gravitational disturbances throughout the system that weren't present when we arrived. Specify. Mass concentrations that don't correspond to any visible objects. They're small but widespread, as if... He paused, consulting his instruments. Again. Sir, it's as if there are large objects throughout the system that our sensors cannot detect. Admiral Kriksta felt the first stirring of unease. In all his campaigns against primitive worlds, he had never encountered anything like this. Intensify all scans. I want to know what we're dealing with. The response came not from his sensors, but from Admiral Chen's voice, returning with the same impossible clarity. Admiral Kriksta, you seem confused. Allow me to clarify the situation. As she spoke, space around the Confederation squadron began to shimmer. What had appeared to be empty voids started to shift and flow like liquid metal. Stealth fields flickered and died, revealing shapes that had been hidden from their sensors. You came here expecting to find a primitive world defended by chemical rockets and nuclear weapons? Admiral Chen continued, her voice now clearly originating from directly in front of the squadron. You were correct about our technology level when you first detected us. However, you made one critical error in your assessment. The largest stealth field collapsed, revealing something that made Admiral Kriksta's predatory instincts scream warnings. A massive structure materialized directly ahead of his flagship, so large that his tactical computers initially classified it as a small moon. You assumed, Admiral Chen's voice continued from the Leviathan that had appeared before them, that we had no prior experience with visitors from the Confederation. The human ship, if it could be called a ship, was unlike anything in Admiral Kriksta's experience. It was clearly artificial, constructed from metals and composites, but its design followed no known engineering principles. Parts of its hull appeared to be grown rather than built, with organic curves that suggested biotechnology. Other sections showed the angular efficiency of advanced manufacturing techniques. Tactical analysis, Admiral Kriksta commanded, his voice steady despite the growing dread in his chest. Sir, the object measures approximately 12 kilometers in length. Mass readings are off our scales. Energy output. The tactical officer paused, recalibrating his instruments. Sir, the energy output from that vessel exceeds our entire squadron's power generation by a factor of 50. That's impossible. No single world species could construct such a vessel. Admiral Chen's response carried a note of amusement. Admiral, you're thinking like a species that developed independently. We had help. More stealth fields collapsed throughout the system. Smaller vessels appeared around each of the Confederation ships, sleek fighters that moved with impossible grace through space. Defense platforms materialized near Earth's orbit, their weapon arrays tracking the squadron with mechanical precision. Hidden shipyards became visible near the system's outer planets, clearly in the process of constructing more vessels. 3 years ago, Admiral Chen explained, the first Confederation expedition arrived in our system. An exploration vessel that had suffered navigation failures and was desperately seeking resources. We helped them repair their ship, gave them supplies, and sent them on their way with samples of our art and culture as gifts. Admiral Kriksta's blood went cold. 3 years ago, the exploration ship Wandering Star had been reported lost with all hands. There had been no distress signals, no trace of wreckage. In return for our assistance, Admiral Chen continued, they provided us with detailed information about Confederation technology, military doctrine, and territorial expansion patterns. We learned that your organization does not recognize the sovereignty of single-world species. We learned that you were coming. The human ship, Admiral Kriksta now realized it had to be called a battleship, though it dwarfed anything in the Confederation fleet, began moving toward his squadron. Despite its massive size, it accelerated smoothly, without any visible propulsion system. "We spent 3 years preparing for your arrival," Admiral Chen said. 3 years reverse engineering Confederation technology and adapting it to human manufacturing techniques. 3 years building a defense force capable of protecting our independence. Admiral Kriksta looked at his tactical displays in growing horror. The energy readings from the human vessels were impossible. They had somehow leapfrogged millennia of technological development in 3 years. "You have 60 seconds to begin your withdrawal." Admiral Chen's voice. Admiral Kriksta stared at the impossible vessel hanging in space before his squadron, his predator instincts warring with military training that had never prepared him for a situation like this. The human battleship was so large that his flagship could have fit inside its main gun barrel with room to spare. The gravitational distortions it created were affecting his navigation systems, and the energy readings were beyond anything his instruments could properly measure. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, voice tight with barely controlled panic, "we're detecting weapon systems across the entire surface of that vessel. Plasma cannons, particle beam arrays, and, sir, there are weapon types our computers cannot identify." "Classification?" Kriksta demanded, though he already knew the answer would be meaningless. "Unknown, sir. The technology appears to be a hybrid of Confederation systems and something else entirely. Our databases have no reference for these configurations." On the communication screen, Ambassador Zexthal's image flickered with static. The diplomatic vessel was clearly struggling with the electromagnetic interference generated by the human ships. "Admiral, this is impossible. Our intelligence reports indicated a primitive civilization with no space-based military capability." "Your intelligence was 3 years out of date," Admiral Kriksta replied grimly. He opened a channel to Admiral Chen. "Admiral Chen, I am prepared to discuss terms for our withdrawal." "There are no terms to discuss," came the immediate reply. "You will leave our system now, or we will remove you. The choice is yours." Admiral Kriksta looked at his tactical displays, searching for any advantage his squadron might possess. His ships were among the most advanced in the Confederation fleet, veterans of dozens of successful campaigns, but they were facing something that defied all conventional understanding of technological development. "Sir," his intelligence officer called out, "we're receiving detailed scans of our vessels. Every ship in the squadron is being analyzed by their sensor systems." "How detailed?" "Complete structural analysis, weapon system identification, shield frequency mapping." "Sir, they know more about our ships than our own engineers do." The implications were terrifying. If the humans could scan Confederation vessels with such precision, they could also target them with devastating accuracy. Admiral Kriksta realized that his squadron was not just outgunned, they were completely defenseless. "Admiral," Admiral Chen's voice returned, "your vessels are impressive examples of Confederation engineering. The inevitable conquest is particularly well designed. Those plasma cannons could probably crack a small moon given enough time." The casual assessment of his flagship's capabilities sent chills through Admiral Kriksta's scaled hide. The humans were discussing his weapons as if they were toys. "However," Admiral Chen continued, "I should point out that our main gun has an effective range of approximately 6 astronomical units and carries enough firepower to sterilize a planet's surface in a single shot. Your shields would stop it for roughly 3 microseconds. To demonstrate her point, one of the smaller weapon arrays on the human battleship briefly activated. The energy beam lanced past Admiral Kriksta's flagship, missing by several kilometers, but still causing his ship's shields to flare from the peripheral energy discharge. The beam continued into space, striking an asteroid in the system's outer reaches and converting it to superheated plasma in an instant. "That was our point defense system," Admiral Chen noted helpfully. "Designed for destroying incoming missiles and small attack craft." Admiral Kriksta's weapons officer looked up from his console, his face pale. "Sir, That single shot carried more energy than our main batteries combined, and they have hundreds of similar weapons across their hull. The Admiral finally understood the true scope of his predicament. The humans had not just built a larger ship, they had fundamentally advanced beyond Confederation technology. Somehow, in 3 years, they had achieved what it had taken his civilization millennia to develop. How? He transmitted, his voice carrying genuine bewilderment. How did you accomplish this in such a short time? The same way humanity has always accomplished the impossible, Admiral Chen replied. We adapted. When we learned about the Confederation's expansion patterns, we realized we had 2 choices, submit or evolve. We chose evolution. Images appeared on Admiral Kriksta's screens, transmitted from the human vessel. They showed massive construction facilities hidden throughout the Sol system, automated shipyards that built components in space, and industrial complexes that had been concealed beneath the surfaces of airless moons. We had advantages you couldn't have anticipated, Admiral Chen continued. First, we had complete technical specifications of your technology, provided by your own people. Second, we had something you don't, 8 billion individuals all working toward the same goal. Third, we had motivation you cannot understand, the absolute refusal to surrender our freedom. More images flowed across the communication link. Human workers and automated systems laboring around the clock, converting entire asteroids into raw materials, building the hidden fleet that now surrounded the Confederation squadron. We built this ship in 72 hours, Admiral Chen revealed. From the moment your ambassador delivered his ultimatum to the moment you arrived, we were constructing the UES Indomitable. Every industrial facility on Earth and throughout, our system worked continuously to complete it in time. Admiral Kriksta's mind reeled. Building a ship of this magnitude in 72 hours should have been physically impossible, even with advanced nanotechnology. The coordination required, the resource management, the sheer scale of the operation. Your species, he said slowly, is not what our intelligence reports indicated. No, Admiral Chen agreed. We're not. You see, Admiral, you made the same mistake that every aggressive civilization makes. You assumed that technological superiority equals invincibility. You forgot that technology is just tools, and tools are only as effective as the minds that wield them. The human battleship began moving again, its massive bulk accelerating with impossible smoothness. As it moved, more ships became visible, dozens, of smaller vessels that had been hidden in its shadow, each one carrying enough firepower to threaten a Confederation cruiser. You have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal, Admiral Chen announced. I suggest you use them wisely. Admiral Kriksta looked around his bridge at officers who had served with him through dozens of successful campaigns. For the first time in his career, he was going to retreat from a single-world species. The humiliation would end his military service, but that was preferable to ending his life. All ships, he commanded, his voice steady despite the circumstances. Begin withdrawal. To jump coordinates. Maximum acceleration. The Confederation squadron turned away from Earth, their engines straining to reach safe jumping distance as quickly as possible. Behind them, the human fleet maintained formation, but did not pursue. Admiral Kriksta, came Admiral Chen's final transmission. The Confederation is welcome to return to our system at any time, for trade negotiations, cultural exchange, or peaceful diplomatic relations. We bear you no ill will, and we understand you were following orders. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. However, if you return with hostile intent, you will discover that the Indomitable was only the beginning. We've learned your technology now, Admiral. We've improved upon it. And we've built a fleet that makes this demonstration look modest by comparison. As the Confederation ships reached jump distance and fled into faster-than-light travel, Admiral Kriksta realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. The humans had done more than defend themselves. They had announced that the age of Confederation expansion was over. Behind them, the human fleet settled back into concealment around their homeworld, ready to defend the principle that had driven their impossible achievement, the simple idea that freedom was worth any price and any sacrifice to preserve. The last transmission from Earth followed the retreating squadron into hyperspace, Admiral Chen's voice carrying a message that would soon echo throughout Confederation space. The next time anyone suggests that diplomacy is weakness, remind them that we tried diplomacy first. We prefer it to the alternatives. Zekthar's 6 eyes moved across the glowing screen in front of him. The Veltani scientist had been doing this job for over 30 years. Every day he looked at signals from dead worlds. Every day he added another extinct species to the great database. The work was sad but important. The Galactic Council needed to know what happened to civilizations that didn't make it. They studied the patterns. They learned from the mistakes. They helped other species avoid the same fate. At least, that's what Zekthar believed. His tentacles moved quickly over the control panel. The morning's signals were typical. A species on the edge of the galaxy had sent their final message before their sun went dark. The message was a poem about hope and beauty. It was peaceful. It was calm. Zekthar sighed through his breathing slits. The pattern never changed. When species faced the end, they always did the same things. They sent messages of love to other worlds. They shared their art and music. They said goodbye with dignity. He had seen this 47,000 times before. The database was huge. 47,000 dead civilizations. Some died from wars. Some died from disease. Some died when their stars burned out. But they all ended the same way. Quiet acceptance. Peaceful final words. "Computer, add entry number 47,001, Zekthar said. His voice was tired. Species designation Morthok. Final transmission. Poetry and mathematical formulas. Standard peaceful resolution pattern confirmed. The computer beeped. Entry added. Pattern analysis updated. Current consistency rate 100%. Zekthar nodded. The pattern was perfect. It had always been perfect. Death brought out the best in intelligent species. They faced the end with wisdom and grace. A new signal alert flashed on his screen. Zekthar's tentacles twitched. Another one so soon? The signals usually came in once or twice a week. This was the second one today. Display new signal, he commanded. The screen changed. Signal source was from a previously unknown system on the outer rim. The computer was already analyzing the transmission. Zekthar waited for the usual results. Poetry, maybe. Or a scientific formula. Perhaps a message of love and hope. The analysis finished. Zekthar looked at the results and felt his breathing slits close in shock. The transmission was not a poem. It was not a formula. It was not peaceful at all. It was a scream. But not just any scream. This was a sound of pure rage. The audio file showed 3 full minutes of the most violent noise Zekthar had ever heard. Weapon fire, explosions. And underneath it all, voices shouting words that the computer couldn't translate, but somehow sounded like battle cries. Zekthar's tentacles shook as he played the transmission again. The scream was so loud and angry that it hurt to listen to. This was not how species were supposed to die. This was not the pattern. Computer, analyze transmission pattern, he said, his voice weak. Analysis complete. Transmission does not match any known extinction pattern. Confidence level, 0% match with database norms. Zekthar stared at the screen. In 30 years of work, he had never seen anything like this. The pattern was perfect. The pattern was always perfect. But this broke everything. He called up the database and ran a search. Maybe he had missed something. Maybe there was another case like this somewhere in the records. Nothing. 47,000 dead civilizations, and every single one had died quietly. Until now. Zekthar's supervisor, Morgak, floated into the analysis room. The older Veltani's tentacles were pale with age, but his eyes were still sharp. Zekthar, I saw your stress readings spike. What's wrong? Zekthar couldn't speak for a moment. He just pointed at the screen. Morgak looked at the analysis. His tentacles went completely still. Play the transmission. Zekthar hesitated. Sir, it's quite disturbing. Play it. The sound filled the room. Morgak's eyes widened as the screaming, shooting, and explosions echoed off the walls. When it finished, both scientists sat in silence. Run a full diagnostic on all equipment, Morgak finally said. Already done, sir. 3 times. The equipment is working perfectly. Morgak's tentacles curled with worry. Then we have a problem. This signal suggests that this species didn't just die. They died fighting something. Zekthar nodded. But fighting what? The system scans show no signs of invasion. No asteroid impacts. No stellar anomalies. Whatever killed them should have left traces. Unless, Morgak said slowly, whatever killed them didn't want to leave traces. Both scientists looked at each other. The same terrible thought was forming in both their minds. Sir, Zekthar said, what if this species wasn't just facing extinction? What if they were facing murder? Morgak's breathing slits fluttered rapidly. That's impossible. The galaxy is peaceful. The Council maintains order. No species would attack another without provocation. But even as he said it, Morgak didn't sound convinced. Zekthar pulled up the system location on the star map. Sir, look at this. The signal came from here. He pointed to a small system on the edge of known space. But look at the surrounding systems. Morgak studied the map. His tentacles went pale. Those systems, they all sent final transmissions. In the last 50 years. All peaceful transmissions, Zekthar added. All fitting the pattern perfectly. Too perfectly, Morgak whispered. They stared at the map in silence. A cluster of dead worlds, all in the same region. All had died peacefully according to their records. All except one. Sir, Zekthar said, what if the pattern isn't natural? What if someone or something has been making sure the final transmissions are always peaceful? Morgak's tentacles trembled. And what if this one species didn't cooperate? The implications were horrible. If someone was killing species and making it look natural, then the Council's entire understanding of galactic history was wrong. Worse, it meant that whoever was doing this was still out there. We need to report this, Morgak said. Report what? Zekthar asked. That we found one species that died angry instead of peaceful? They'll think we're crazy. Then we need proof. Zekthar looked at the screaming transmission again. The proof is right here. This species didn't accept death. They fought it. The question is, did they win? Morgak was quiet for a long time. Then he made a decision that would change everything. Prepare a full report. Include all the analysis. Request a Council investigation team. Sir, they won't authorize an expedition based on one anomalous signal. Then we make them understand, Morgak said firmly. We show them that for the first time in recorded history, a species' last words weren't goodbye. Zekthar nodded and began preparing the report. As he worked, the screaming transmission played in his mind over and over. It wasn't just a scream of death. The more he listened to it, the more he was sure. It was a scream of war. And somewhere out there, the war might still be going on. Captain Mordun stood on the bridge of the research vessel Eternal Wisdom and watched the unknown star system grow larger on the viewing screen. The Cathari officer's scales shifted from blue to purple, showing his nervousness. In all his years of investigating dead worlds, he had never seen the Council move so fast to approve an expedition. The screaming transmission had shaken everyone who heard it. 3 Council species had demanded immediate investigation. 2 others had called for the transmission to be classified and buried. The vote to send a ship had barely passed. "Captain," called Science Officer Velna from her station. The Althari's crystal-like form glowed softly as she worked. "We're detecting massive debris fields in the system, much more than expected." Morden's scales darkened. On screen, the image changed to show the 3rd planet of the system. What they saw made the entire bridge crew fall silent. Space around the planet was filled with wreckage. Huge pieces of metal and technology drifted in complex patterns. Some pieces were still glowing from recent explosions. This wasn't the clean aftermath of a natural disaster. This was the remains of a battle. "Analysis, Velna," Mordoon ordered. "Sir, I'm reading 2 distinct technology signatures in the debris. One appears to be from the native species. The other—" She paused, her crystal body flickering with confusion. "The other doesn't match anything in our database." Dr. Helix, the expedition's xenoarchaeologist, slithered forward on his many legs. "Captain, this changes everything. We're not looking at an extinction event. We're looking at an invasion." Mordun nodded grimly. "But an invasion by whom? And why isn't it in our records?" "Sir," Velna interrupted, "I'm detecting something else. Several large pieces of the unknown technology are moving away from the system. They appear to be damaged but functional." The bridge fell silent again. Mordun's scales went completely black. "You're saying some of the invaders survived?" "More than survived, sir. They're retreating in formation. Whatever happened here, the battle might not be over." Mordun made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Follow that debris trail, but keep us cloaked and maintain maximum distance." His communications officer, a nervous Veltani named Zixtar, spoke up. "Sir, regulations state that we should report back to the Council immediately upon discovering unknown hostile technology. Regulations also state that we should gather complete data before making reports," Mordoon replied. "We follow for 1 day. If we find nothing, we return home." But they wouldn't find nothing. The debris trail led them to a nearby system that wasn't supposed to be inhabited. According to Council records, these worlds had never developed intelligent life. The surveys had been clear. The surveys had been wrong. "Captain," Velna whispered, "you need to see this." On the screen appeared something that defied everything the Council believed about the galaxy. 3 worlds showed signs of advanced civilization. Massive cities covered the continents. Orbital platforms surrounded each planet, and everywhere the signature of the unknown technology. But it wasn't just the scale that shocked them. It was the military presence. "Count the warships," Mordoon ordered. Velna's crystal form pulsed rapidly as she worked. "Sir, I count over 3,000 vessels in this system alone, each one larger than our heaviest Council battleships." Dr. Helix made a sound that might have been a whimper. "Captain, this species has a military force that could challenge the entire Council combined. How is this possible? How did we not know about them?" Before Mordun could answer, their proximity alarms began screaming. "We've been detected," Zixtar announced, his tentacles shaking. "Something is scanning us through our cloak." "Impossible," Mordun said. "Our cloaking technology is the most advanced in the galaxy." "Sir," Velna reported, "I'm receiving a transmission. It's in perfect Council standard language. Put it through." A voice filled the bridge. It was cold, calm, and completely unlike anything they expected from an unknown species. "Council vessel Eternal Wisdom. You are in violation of territorial space. You have 30 seconds to decloak and explain your presence, or you will be destroyed." Mordun's scales went white with shock. They knew the ship's name. They knew Council languages. They had been watching. "How long have they known about us?" Dr. Helix whispered. The voice came again. 20 seconds. Mordun had to make a choice. Run back to Council space and report what they'd found, or try to make contact with this unknown species. "Decloak the ship," he ordered. "Sir!" Zixtar protested. Do it! The eternal wisdom shimmered into visibility. Immediately, they were surrounded by a dozen of the unknown warships. Each one was massive and covered in weapons systems that looked like nothing in Council technology. This is Captain Mordun of the Galactic Council research vessel Eternal Wisdom. We come in peace to investigate. An anomalous signal from a nearby system. There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, and this time it sounded amused. Peace. How quaint. Captain Mordun, you and your crew will transport to our flagship immediately. Resistance will result in your destruction. Sir, Dr. Helix said quietly. Perhaps we should try to run. Mordun looked at the warships surrounding them. Each one could probably destroy the Eternal Wisdom without effort. I don't think running is an option. The transport beam activated without their permission. Council technology was supposed to prevent unauthorized transport, but these aliens cut through their defenses like they weren't even there. Mordun, Velna, Dr. Helix, and Zixtar found themselves standing in what was obviously a detention cell. The walls were made of some unknown metal, and the air smelled strange. Well, Dr. Helix said, this is definitely not how first contact is supposed to work. A door opened that they hadn't even seen in the wall. 2 figures entered, and the Council team got their first look at the unknown species. They were bipedal, roughly the same height as most Council species. Their skin was pale and smooth, with hair growing from the tops of their heads. They had only 2 eyes, positioned close together on the front of their faces. By Council standards, they looked almost primitive, but their technology was anything but primitive. I am Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force, one of them said. You are our prisoners. Earth? Dr. Helix said. That's not in any of our star charts. Commander Chen smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. Of course it's not. Your council has very carefully made sure we don't exist in any official records. Mordun's scales shifted to deep blue. I don't understand. You will, Chen said. Tell me, Captain, how many extinct species has your council cataloged? 47,000, Mordun answered automatically. And how many of those sent peaceful final transmissions? All of them. It's the universal pattern of intelligent species facing extinction. Chen's smile became colder. No, Captain. It's the pattern of species that have been conditioned to accept their murder quietly. The words hit the council team like physical blows. That's impossible, Zixtar protested. The council protects species. We help them avoid extinction. The Bana Council, said the second human, creates extinction. We have proof. Chen nodded. And you're going to help us gather more. The interrogation room was small and cold. Captain Mordun sat across from Commander Chen, while Dr. Helix and the others waited in separate cells. The human woman had been asking questions for hours, and each answer seemed to make her angrier. Tell me about the Zephyri civilization, Chen said, sliding a data pad across the table. Mordun looked at the information. They were destroyed by a plague approximately 200 years ago. Very sad case. They sent beautiful music as their final transmission. Wrong, Chen said flatly. They were poisoned by nanobots introduced into their water supply. The plague was engineered. The music was transmitted while they were dying in agony, but neural suppressors made them believe they were at peace. Mordun's scales went pale. That's impossible. Who would do such a thing? Chen pulled up another file. The Morthek species. Tell me about them. Asteroid impact. They sent mathematical formulas proving the existence of higher dimensions. Very philosophical final message. The asteroids were guided by gravity manipulators. The formulas were programmed responses transmitted by machines after the population was already dead. Each revelation hit Mordun like a physical blow. Chen continued, file after file, species after species. Every extinction the Council had recorded was a lie. Every peaceful death was actually murder. Stop, Mordun whispered. Please stop. Chen leaned forward. 47,000 species, Captain. 47,000 civilizations murdered by your precious council, and you helped them cover it up. I didn't know, Morden said weakly. We're just scientists. We record signals. We preserve history. You preserve lies, Chen snapped. But there's one signal you couldn't explain, wasn't there? One transmission that didn't fit the pattern. Morden nodded miserably. The screaming signal. That's why we came here. That signal, Chen said, was us. The first species in galactic history that refused to die quietly. She activated a holographic display showing a blue and green world. This is Earth. 3 years ago, your council decided we were ready for extinction. They sent their cleanup crew. The display changed to show massive ships approaching the planet. They tried the usual methods first. Engineered plague, economic collapse, resource depletion. But humans are stubborn. We adapted. We survived. Morden watched in horror as the display showed orbital bombardment beginning. Cities disappeared in flashes of light. Continents burned. So they decided on direct action, Chen continued. Orbital bombardment, complete sterilization. We were supposed to send a peaceful final message and die like good little primitives. The display showed human ships rising from the burning planet, ships that shouldn't exist, using technology that shouldn't be possible. Instead, Chen said with grim satisfaction, we shot back. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Council's cleanup crew was professional and efficient. They had done this 47,000 times before. They knew exactly how primitive species would respond to overwhelming force. They were wrong. Humans didn't respond like other species. They didn't accept their fate. They didn't send poetic final messages. They screamed with rage and fought with everything they had, and somehow, impossibly, they won. How? Morden whispered. Chen smiled coldly. We're very good at learning from our enemies. Every weapon they used against us, we studied. Every technology they deployed, we copied and improved. Humans have a gift for taking peaceful tools and turning them into weapons. She showed him footage of human engineers working frantically in underground bunkers while the surface burned above them. They were taking apart pieces of crashed council ships and rebuilding them into something new. Your cleanup crew made a mistake, Chen said. They underestimated us. They thought they were fighting primitives with basic technology. They didn't realize they were fighting a species that had been preparing for war since we first looked at the stars. But the Council said Earth was pre-spaceflight, Morden protested. The Council saw what we wanted them to see, Chen replied. We've been watching you for decades, learning about you, preparing for the day you decided we were a threat. The holographic display showed the aftermath of the battle, burning Council ships falling into Earth's atmosphere, human vessels pursuing the retreating survivors. We sent that screaming transmission for a reason, Chen said. We wanted every species in the galaxy to hear it. We wanted them to know that someone had finally said no. Morden stared at the display. You're saying the Council has been murdering species for thousands of years? Not the entire Council, Chen corrected. Just the ones in charge. The species like yours are tools, useful idiots who believe they're preserving history while actually helping to cover up genocide. She pulled up files showing the true structure of the Galactic Council. The species Morden thought were equal partners were actually divided into different levels. At the top were the architects, species so old and powerful that most council members didn't even know they existed. The architects maintain galactic stability by preventing any species from becoming too powerful, Chen explained. They allow civilizations to develop to a certain point, then arrange their extinction. It's been going on for millions of years. Why? Morden asked. Because they're afraid, Chen said simply. Afraid that a younger species might surpass them. Afraid that someone might challenge their control. So they murder potential rivals and make it look natural. She leaned back in her chair. But they made a mistake with us. They waited too long. By the time they decided we were a threat, we had already figured out what they were doing. How? Chen activated another display showing intercepted council communications. We've been monitoring your signals for 50 years. We broke your encryption decades ago. We know about the extinction schedules. We know about the cleanup crews. We know everything. Morden felt sick. His entire life had been dedicated to preserving the memory of dead civilizations. Now he learned that he had actually been helping. They're murderers. What do you want from us? He asked. Information, Chen said. We need to know the locations of Council military bases. We need the extinction schedules for upcoming targets. We need access codes for your databases. I can't betray the Council. Chen stood up and walked to the wall. A section became transparent, showing the space outside. Morden could see hundreds of human warships. Each one bristled with weapons that looked like they were built from captured Council technology, but somehow made more deadly. Captain, Chen said quietly, your Council murdered 47,000 civilizations. They were planning to murder mine. How is stopping them a betrayal? Morden looked at the human fleet. Each ship represented technology that shouldn't exist. Each weapon was a testament to human determination to survive. If I help you, he said, slowly, you'll use that information to attack the Council. Yes. Billions will die. Billions already have died. We're just making sure the killing stops. Morden was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. What guarantee do I have that humans won't become the same thing you're fighting? What stops you from taking the Council's place as galactic overlords? Chen turned back to him. Because we're not afraid of competition. We don't need to kill potential rivals. We just need to make sure no one can kill us. She sat back down. The Council rules through fear and murder. We're offering something different. A galaxy where species don't have to die quietly when powerful. Enemies decide they're inconvenient. And if I refuse to help? Then you go home, Chen said simply. You report what you've learned. You warn the Council that their secret is out. And we fight this war the hard way. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Either way, Captain, the age of peaceful extinctions is over. The only question is, how many more species have to die before the killing stops? Dr. Helix couldn't stop shaking as he studied the data files Commander Chen had given them. The evidence was overwhelming and horrifying. Everything he had believed about galactic history was a lie. Look at this, he said to his fellow prisoners. His many legs clicked nervously against the floor as he worked. The Veltani extinction 2,000 years ago, we thought they died from solar radiation when their star became unstable. Captain Morden looked over his shoulder. What does it really say? Their star was destabilized on purpose. Someone used stellar manipulation technology to cause the radiation bursts. The Veltani died slowly, over several months. Their final transmissions talked about accepting their fate and finding peace in death. But that's exactly what the records show, Science Officer Velna said. Her crystal form was dim with distress. That's the point, Dr. Helix replied. The peaceful final messages weren't natural. They were the result of neural conditioning. The Veltani thought they were at peace while they were actually dying in agony. Zixtar, the communications officer, made a sound of disgust. How is that possible? Dr. Helix pulled up another file. Neural manipulation technology. It makes victims feel calm and philosophical while they're being murdered. It's been standard procedure for the Council's extinction operations for thousands of years. The room fell silent as they absorbed this information. Every species they had studied, every peaceful final message they had recorded, was the result of technological mind control. I need to see the complete files, Morden said quietly. Doctor. Helix nodded and activated the full database. What they found was even worse than they had imagined. The Galactic Council wasn't just a collection of allied species. It was a carefully designed hierarchy with multiple levels of knowledge and control. Most species, like their own, knew almost nothing about the true structure. At the bottom were the observer species. They thought they were equal partners in the council, but they were actually just tools. They recorded extinction events, maintained databases, and helped create the illusion that the galaxy was a peaceful place where species naturally died out when they couldn't adapt. Above them were the guardian species. They knew about the extinction operations but believed they were necessary for galactic stability. They provided the military forces and technology needed to eliminate dangerous species. At the top were the architect species. These were the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, some over 10 million years old. They made the decisions about which species lived and which died. My God, Velna whispered. We're not scientists. We're accomplices. Dr. Hallex found the file that made everything clear. It was labeled Galactic Stability Protocol, and it outlined the Council's true purpose. According to the document, the galaxy had once been full of competing civilizations. Wars were constant. Billions died in massive conflicts as species fought for resources and territory. The chaos lasted for millions of years. The architect species had survived because they were the strongest, but they were tired of constant warfare, so they developed a different strategy. Instead of fighting other species directly, they would manage galactic development. They allowed new civilizations to grow, but only to a certain point. When a species became advanced enough to pose a threat, the Council would arrange their extinction, sometimes through natural disasters, sometimes through engineered conflicts with other species, sometimes through direct military action. The key was making it look natural. Other species needed to believe that extinction was just part of galactic evolution. If they knew the truth, they might unite against the Council. It's brilliant, Dr. Helix said with sick admiration. They've created a system where they never have to fight a real war. They just eliminate potential enemies before they become dangerous. Brilliant and evil, Mordun corrected. The files showed the complete list of targeted species. The Council maintained extinction schedules hundreds of years in advance. They monitored thousands of developing civilizations, tracking their technological progress and military potential. When a species reached certain milestones, they were marked for elimination. Look at this, Zixtar said, pointing to a recent entry. The humans were scheduled for extinction 3 years ago, right on time. Dr. Helix found the human assessment file. It made for disturbing reading. The humans had been under observation for over 200 years. The Council had noted their rapid technological development, their aggressive nature, and their tendency to unite against common enemies. All of these traits marked them as a potential threat, but the Council had made several critical errors in their assessment. First, they had underestimated human intelligence. The Council thought humans were just another primitive species that would fight with simple weapons and basic tactics. They didn't realize that humans had been studying Council technology for decades. Second, they had underestimated human unity. The Council expected humans to fragment into competing factions when faced with extinction. Instead, the threat of annihilation had united humanity like never before. Third, they had underestimated human determination. The Council expected humans to accept their fate when the extinction operation began. Instead, humans had fought back. With unprecedented fury. The screaming transmission, Velna said suddenly. That was the moment the pattern broke. Dr. Helix nodded. For the first time in galactic history, a species refused to die quietly, and they were strong enough to make that refusal stick. The door to their cell opened. Commander Chen entered, with 2 other humans, both wearing military uniforms covered in insignia that none of the aliens recognized. Have you reviewed the files? Chen asked. Yes, Mordun said. If this information is accurate, then everything we've believed is wrong. It's accurate, Chen replied. We've verified it through multiple sources. Your council has been murdering civilizations for millions of years. One of the other humans stepped forward. I'm General Martinez, commander of human military intelligence. We've been intercepting Council communications for decades. We know about the extinction schedules. We know about the upcoming targets. He activated a holographic display showing a star map. Red dots mark systems throughout the galaxy. These are species currently marked for extinction, Martinez said. Some are scheduled to die within the next 50 years. Others have longer timelines, but they're all on the list. Dr. Helix studied the map with growing horror. Hundreds of species were marked for death. Civilizations that thought they were safe, that believed they were protected by the Council, were actually being prepared for murder. We want to stop this, Chen said. But we need your help. What kind of help? Mordun asked. Access codes for Council databases, military base locations, transport schedules, communication frequencies. Chen sat down across from them. We need to know how the Council operates so we can shut it down. And if we refuse? Then millions of species die over the next few millennia, Martinez said bluntly. The Council's extinction program will continue until they're the only intelligent life left in the galaxy. Velna's crystal form pulsed with distress. But if we help you attack the Council, billions of innocent people will die in the war. Billions of innocent people are already dying, Chen replied. The only difference is that now they die quietly, believing they're experiencing natural disasters or inevitable social collapse. She activated another display showing recent extinction. Events. The Korthani species died last year. Official cause: economic collapse leading to social breakdown. Real cause: their currency was artificially destabilized by Council economic manipulation. They spent their final months in civil war, believing they had failed as a civilization. The Morthak died 6 months ago, Martinez added. Official cause: asteroid impact. Real cause: gravity manipulators guided 3 asteroids into their homeworld. They spent their last minutes transmitting mathematical formulas, believing they were sharing their final discoveries with the galaxy. Dr. Helix felt sick. How many more are scheduled to die this year? 17 species, Chen said quietly. Unless we stop it. The cell fell silent as the Council team absorbed this information. Everything they had worked for, everything they had believed in, was built on lies and genocide. If we help you, Mordun said slowly, what happens after you win? How do we know you won't become the new Council? Chen and Martinez exchanged looks. Because we don't want to rule the galaxy, Chen said finally. We just want to be left alone to develop without someone deciding we're too dangerous to live. The human plan is simple, Martinez explained. Expose the truth. End the extinction programs. Let species develop naturally without interference. And if that leads to wars, Zixtar asked. Then species will fight their own battles and make their own choices, Chen replied. That's better than having their choices made for them by ancient overlords who murder anyone who might challenge their authority. Mordun was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. If I give you the access codes, how many Council worlds will you attack? All of them, Martinez said without hesitation. This system has to be completely destroyed. There can't be any survivors who might restart the extinction programs. That's genocide, Velna protested. No, Chen said firmly. Genocide is what they've been doing for millions of years. This is justice. The first sign of the coming storm was the silence. Across the galaxy, Council monitoring stations stopped receiving their regular reports. Communication networks went dark. Supply ships failed to arrive at their destinations. For 3 days, the upper levels of the Council assumed it was just technical problems. On the 4th day, they realized they were under attack. Supreme Administrator Velkathon of the Architect Council stood in the command center of the primary Council world, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. His ancient form, kept alive by technology beyond the understanding of younger species, trembled with an emotion he hadn't felt in millions of years. Fear. Report, he commanded. his voice echoing strangely through the vast chamber. Military coordinator. Zeftan, a Guardian species officer, consulted his displays with obvious panic. Sir, we've lost contact with 47 military installations. Long-range scanners show massive fleet movements in 17 sectors. And... He paused, his tentacles shaking. Continue. Sir, we're receiving the same transmission from every attacked facility before they go dark. Show me. The main display activated, showing a simple message repeated across dozens of frequencies. It was in perfect Council standard, but the accent was unfamiliar. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Human Defense Force. Your extinction operation against Earth has failed. Your secret is exposed. Your reign of terror is over. Surrender now and face trial for genocide, or face complete annihilation. You have 24 hours to respond. The message was followed by something that chilled Velkathon to his ancient bones. Laughter, human laughter, wild and fierce and completely without mercy. Humans, Velkathon whispered. Impossible. The Earth operation was completed 3 years ago. Sir, Zeftan said weakly, according to our records, the human extinction was successful. The cleanup crew reported total planetary sterilization. Then how are they here? Before anyone could answer, proximity alarms began screaming throughout. The command center. The orbital defense grid was detecting massive signatures approaching the system. How many ships? Velkathon demanded. Sir, the sensor operator reported, I count. This can't be right. How many? Over 10,000 vessels, sir, all using technology signatures that match the attackers from other systems. Velkathon stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human fleet was larger than anything the Council had assembled in its entire history. Each ship appeared to be heavily armed with weapons that were clearly based on Council technology, but somehow improved. Open a communication channel, he ordered. The main screen flickered, then showed the face of a human woman. She looked young by galactic standards, but her eyes held the coldness of someone who had seen too much war. Supreme Administrator Velkathon, she said without preamble. I'm Admiral Chen. We need to talk. This is impossible, Velkathon said. Earth was sterilized. The human species was extinct. Chen's smile was colder than the space between stars. You tried to kill us quietly, like all the others. You expected us to send peaceful final messages and die with dignity. Instead, we screamed our rage across the galaxy and fought back. One species cannot defeat the entire Council. One species couldn't, Chen agreed. But we're not alone anymore. The display split to show fleet signatures from across the galaxy. Council forces were being attacked simultaneously by dozens of different species, all coordinating their strikes with the humans. Impossible, Velkathon repeated. The other species don't know the truth. They believe in the Council's mission. They did, Chen said, until we showed them the evidence. Turns out, most species don't appreciate learning that they're slaves helping their masters commit genocide. She activated a data stream showing intercepted Council communications, classified databases, and extinction schedules. All of it was being broadcast on every frequency the humans could access. The truth is spreading faster than you can contain. Chen continued. Every species marked for extinction is joining our alliance. Every Guardian species that thought they were protecting the galaxy is realizing they've been tools of mass murder. Velkathon watched his empire crumble in real time. Across the galaxy, Council facilities were surrendering or being destroyed. Ships that had served the Council for millennia were switching sides. The careful hierarchy that had maintained order for millions of years was collapsing. What do you want? He asked finally. Justice, Chen said simply. Complete surrender of all Council forces. Access to all databases and records. Full confession of the genocide programs, and trials for everyone involved in planning or executing extinctions. And if I refuse? Chen's expression didn't change. Then we destroy every council world, every station, every ship. We hunt down every architect, every guardian, every observer who helped maintain this system, and we make sure that galactic civilization remembers what happens to those who commit genocide. Velkathon was silent for a long moment. Around him, his command staff waited for orders that he couldn't give. The Council's military forces were scattered across the galaxy, designed to handle small extinction operations, not a coordinated rebellion by hundreds of species. "You would destroy billions of innocent people," he said finally. "Like you did?" Chen asked. "How many billions died in your extinction programs? How many species were murdered to maintain your stability?" The human admiral leaned forward. "The difference is we're giving you a choice, something you never gave your victims." Another voice joined the transmission. Captain Morden appeared on the screen beside Chen, his scales pale with stress, but his voice steady. "Supreme Administrator," he said, "I've seen the evidence. The humans are telling the truth. The Council has been murdering species for millions of years. It has to stop." "Captain Morden," Velkathon said with surprise, "you survived the investigation mission." "I survived because the humans aren't the monsters you told us they were," Morden replied. "They're the first species in galactic history with the strength to say no to the Council's extinction machine." Chen nodded. "We're broadcasting that original screaming transmission on every frequency, to every world. We want every species in the galaxy to hear it, to know that someone finally refused to die quietly." On displays throughout the Council, Command Center, the same transmission was playing, the sound of human rage, human defiance, human refusal to accept extinction. It was being heard by billions of beings across thousands of worlds, and for the first time in galactic history, other species were starting to scream back. "Your time is up," Chen said. "Do you surrender?" Velkathon looked around his command center. His staff was watching him, waiting for his decision. Some looked hopeful, as if surrender might save them. Others looked resigned, understanding that their ancient empire was truly ending. "If I surrender," he said slowly, "what guarantee do I have that you won't simply execute us all?" "The same guarantee you gave the 47,000 species you murdered," Chen replied. "None. But unlike you, we believe in justice, not just revenge. Cooperate fully, and you'll live to face trial. Resist, and you'll share the fate you gave so many others." The command center fell silent except for the sound of the human scream playing on repeat across every communication channel. Finally, Velkathon made his choice. "I surrender," he said quietly. "The Council surrenders." Chen nodded. "Smart choice. You have 1 hour to broadcast the surrender order to all Council forces. After that, any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." The transmission ended, leaving Velkathon alone with the ruins of his ancient empire. As he prepared the surrender broadcast, he could hear the human scream echoing from every speaker in the galaxy. It was no longer just a signal of defiance. It had become the sound of freedom, the noise that species made when they refused to accept their fate quietly. For millions of years, the Council had ensured that every civilization's final transmission was peaceful, philosophical, accepting of death. They had perfected the art of quiet extinction, but humans had changed everything. They had shown the galaxy that sometimes the only appropriate response to annihilation was not poetry or mathematics or peaceful resignation. Sometimes the only response was a scream of pure rage. And that scream had broken the silence of ages, awakened sleeping civilizations, and brought down the greatest empire in galactic history. The age of peaceful extinctions was over. The age of fighting back had begun, and it had started with a simple human truth: better to die screaming than to die quietly.